What does a curious grown-up do about Shakespeare who's not really had any exposure to it beyond getting through it as fast as possible at the age of 15? Is it worth it? Is there and how do you approach it? Because an initial, it's not like reading Game of Thrones, let's say, because it's a different language almost. So how does one approach what is one of the kind of banks of literature that is so crucial to where we are today?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah.
I think you've got to see it on stage or on film. The stories are very good.
So see it as a play rather than a piece of reading.
Yeah, I mean, it's like trying to appreciate Beethoven by reading the score. You know, to give a child a score of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, they're not going to like it very much. But when you hear it played, then it means something. And play scripts are like a musical score, essentially.
Right.
And I used to teach Shakespeare quite a bit, both at secondary schools and at a university level. And I often found that actually getting the students up on their feet and performing scenes would wake them up in the most incredible way. They'd suddenly realise how much there is in the...
Versus going line by line through sat on your chairs. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you actually have to stand up and say a few lines from Macbeth or Hamlet, you suddenly realise that there are the characters are speaking to each other, that there are physical demands being placed on them. They have to do certain things, and it suddenly becomes much more powerful as well. Yeah. When you see it on the page, it's just a foreign language, as you said. It is, it's very old English. Yeah.
And what's your favourite Shakespeare play? Where would you start?
Hamlet. Yeah.
Is that Hamlet? Okay.
It's one of the great works, maybe 4 or 5 great works of world literature.
Yeah.
Absolutely miles above most of.
And is that because of the story or the characters, or just because everything put together?
Just everything. Yeah.
So let's fight. Yeah, I think people listening.
I mean, everything's not a very good answer. All right, what is it about it? The figure of a young man, a young prince who has got everything. His world is broken apart when he meets the ghost of his father, saying to him, "I was murdered. I was the king of Denmark. I was murdered by my brother, who is now the king of Denmark. Now you've got to go and avenge my death and kill that man, your uncle, who's married to your mother now." And Hamlet is a he's studied philosophy. He's a perfect Renaissance prince. He has got no training in this kind of vendetta, blood politics, and his life falls apart as he tries to deal with this horrific obligation that's been laid on him by the ghost of his father. I mean, it's full of the most wonderful soliloquies as well. Freud went to town on it. The scene where he's in his mother's bedroom with her saying, "Leave this monster that you're married to." And as Freud pointed out, there's a powerful sexual transaction going on in that scene. I mean, it's astonishing stuff. Wow. And it's wonderful to see on stage as well. Really is. I mean, you everything else falls away, and the communication with this particular figure, this young man, is. I mean, when you get a good Hamlet, and it's the one role that all great actors want to play.
Crikey! Well, I think we all know what's on our to-do list this summer. The other endowment the English language has, or modern English has today, is people argue is the Bible.
Mm.
Have you found that a rich source of material, writing, ways of demonstrating things? I'm reading a lot of Trollope at the moment. We've talked about it before, and it's the Penguin is very helpful because it provides little notes at the end that you can refer to, and every 3 pages there's either a quote from the Bible or there's a quote from Shakespeare.
Mm.
And Anthony Trollope has managed to, know those two things so well that it's made his stories richer without me realizing it. If I didn't have Penguin telling me that. So have you found that the King James Bible version, is that as foundational as people say it is?
Oh yes, completely. But I mean, you have to remember that was it's really the foundation of our education. I'm talking about being educated in England in the 1950s, and it had been like that since the Bible was translated into English 5 or 6 centuries ago. It wasn't just a technical education; it was regarded as the Word of God.
Right.
So, you took it pretty seriously. I mean, even in all the sort of wonderful, boisterous rebelliousness of youth, you still would think, well, actually, I better take that stuff seriously. And you heard it all day long. I went to prayers or church every single day of my schooling, 15 years of church every day, hearing the Bible. And then lots of writers who were formed by it. As it happens, the King James Bible was put together by a remarkable team of translators and writers. It's thought Shakespeare might have been involved as well. It certainly makes all subsequent versions sound wooden and dull.
I've read one or flicked through one or two kind of modern copies where like Jesus was a dude who kind of and it's sort of a bit cringe.
Yeah.
But when you hear that the old Psalms being recited at a Sunday service or a wedding or something, there's a reason why I think in a very secular or atheistic world people still crave a Christian wedding. Because you're turning up to an occasion which is meant to be cementing something for many decades. So you want something that's been cemented hundreds of years ago. Absolutely. To give you that sense of continuity and grounding, even if none of us really believe in what it's saying necessarily anymore. But when you were at school, it was still hammered home as the kind of word of God, and that's why it's not a school lesson. Look at the beauty of the way. This is foundational.
That's right. Yes, and sorry, that's right. I think to just separate out its elegance or its beauty is to do it a violence, really. It's been read not just because it's beautiful and not just because people say it's the word of God, but there's a lot of wisdom in it too. I mean, it's fantastic to read. I've been struck for a long, long time by the first story in the Bible, which is, as Milton put it, of man's first disobedience. That you what is the fundamental fact about human beings? If you say to them, you can do anything you like, but don't touch that one thing.
Yeah.
This
plate is very hot when you get served at a restaurant. The sort of first thing you do.
Exactly. The forbidden is the most attractive thing, and that somehow that's hardwired into us. It's very difficult, and I think it's brilliant that that's there as a foundational story.
Thank you for watching this clip from the Meeting People podcast. To watch the full episode, visit the description or click on this link.